Hi, everybody. My name is John Baton, and today I'm going to be going over the Ford case. This is what I was assigned for business policy, so this is my strategy moving forward. For agenda, I am first going to go through current situation. We're going to go through some performance data, some SWOT analysis. I want to look at some key issues and some alternatives to those issues, some recommendations, and finally I'm going to give a conclusion for this. Now, before we get into all of that, I do want to go through the history of Ford. It's important to know where they started. I mean, kind of the backbone of American transportation. Henry T. Ford started the assembly line. He created the 40-hour work week, which I'm sure a lot of us don't like in America. But as far as the company is concerned, just in 120 years, you can kind of see this unbelievable shift in just the kind of things that happen over time. I mean, going from a quadricycle, basically a bike, to now we have $70,000 sports cars that have 800 horsepower that can go 200 miles an hour in a few seconds. It's unbelievable just to see how much the world changes in just a short amount of time, like a century. For strategic situation, when the case was presented, Ford currently had 200,000 employees at 70 plants. Revenues had really started to turn around since the previous pandemic or the previous recession of 2008, but COVID has really changed that. Almost every single company lost a ton of money or had a severe issue with stock price for the pandemic. There was a decrease in sales and revenue across the board for a little bit. Of course, we rebounded in terms of the stock market and the economy. We really managed to work really hard to get through that. But now prices have kind of ballooned to the point where there's not much of a demand for these expensive cars. My generation, now that we're starting to get into the workforce, it's just hard for some of them to see the economic utility in buying a car that's $30,000 when we can get something cheaper that's just used. As far as performance outlook, revenues stayed the same from 2017 to 2019. However, cost of sales increased by about $3 billion, expenses increased by $4 billion, and operating income went down a bunch. It went down 4.8 billion dollars. Other income also suffered a huge downturn, going into the loss prof category finally, and net income has went down a ton because of it. You can see just from sales expenses increasing the way they have, that's where you can see a huge change in net income. And earnings per share is just abysmal. That's the simplest way to put that. So when I looked at the balance sheet, and I wanted to put quite interesting here, mainly because I thought it was funny. You know, this is the last presentation I'm giving for my undergrad, so I'm just kind of joking around a little bit. But I didn't see any changes in the balance sheet. When I looked through accounting stuff, financial data, usually when you see a huge change in revenues and cost of sales, usually the balance sheet will start like showing that. Like you could see an increase in maybe liabilities or an increase in or a decrease in assets. I didn't see any difference. There were hardly any changes, to be honest with you, and that really confused and kind of surprised me. As far as their new strategy, it used to be making people's lives better by making mobility accessible and affordable, and now, of course, we have shifted into this kind of technology focused and technology centric, moving forward, going with the times and trying to evolve constantly. And just to continue on that a little bit, they wanted to have a winning portfolio. These are just the four main pillars that they wanted to see in this new plan, this new strategy, and that included a new lineup as well, which you can see on the bottom of this slide. Now I'm going to give a SWOT analysis. These are just the four strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, of course. As far as strengths are concerned, there is a huge consumer base. Ford is a large company. They have always been a large company. So it really helps them to have that kind of loyal consumer base and have people behind them like they do. A lot of brand familiarization, and you can see, of course, the other three. There's a good amount of products being offered, and I think they have a lot of money. So that should really work in their favor moving forward and trying to transform this company into something a little better. Weaknesses, I have put in, I already talked about this, but there is less of a demand for these more luxurious cars, or I would say more expensive. Just the price alone, it's gone up astronomically in the past 20 years. So a lot of people just want to buy used cars now. And to add on top of that, the EV market is experiencing a huge balloon in demand. A lot of people want electricity-based vehicles now. There is this huge thought process of it being better for the environment. So you're really seeing the kind of demand system change for Ford, and that's really going to hurt them if they can't fix this. For opportunities, I thought that they do have more than enough capital to change into a more EV focused brand. I mean, if they wanted to, let's say, go full Tesla, right, and just say, hey, we want to move completely towards making electric vehicles. Screw petrol, screw all of this stuff. We don't need to be part of gas cars anymore. They could do that. I mean, they have more than enough money to start doing this. They have more than enough money to change their assembly lines to start producing it. And I think, honestly, they could offer a lower price car. Their supply chain, I feel, is very low cost from what I've looked at. Usually American supply chains can be relatively low cost, but it seems like a lot of companies have recently shifted towards increasing their prices. They haven't really shifted into the idea of caring about the consumer anymore, and that's really sad to see in our society. As far as threats, for our last part of our SWOT analysis, I think the threat is if they go to EV, a lot of people are not going to like that with the Ford brand. You know, Chevy has still kind of doubled down on this idea of, hey, we're still going to produce a sports car. We're still going to produce a supercar with the Corvette. And they're going to have a large consumer base of people that still like those gas engines, that still like having the big engines, the big sounds. It's just the way it is. That's how some of us are born, you know. To add on top of that, I think that they have a lot of outside competition, and that's going to really hurt them. The economic bubble, in terms of pricing, in terms of the way we are charging our consumers, like I have mentioned, is really going to hurt them, and it's really going to hurt a lot of companies here soon. I think our key issue for all of this is they can't sell cars. For revenue to stay pretty much the same, but for cost of sales to go up, for expenses to go up, as far as an auditor would be concerned, they would be like, okay, you guys aren't selling enough cars. The volume isn't there. Your revenues might be the same, but now that you're selling more cars, it's costing you more money. You're dealing with more defects now. And I think they need to start working on marketing themselves better. They need to offer more affordable cars, more affordable SUVs. I don't like the idea that they are not offering a car anymore. I still think there's a lot of people who are lower income that would really benefit from being able to buy a $15,000 to $20,000 car, and they would love a company to be behind that. And finally, my recommendations and final thoughts, I think they should personally double down on sports. That's been their brand for the last 100 years. I see no reason to change it now. I personally, and a lot of studies have come out that really say that electricity really isn't that much different than the environment than oil. These two energy sources are here to stay, and I think that Ford should work on what Ford does best and let some of the electric vehicle manufacturers do what they do best. And I think this will help Ford start to see more profits. I think them moving towards the sports car strategy again, the truck strategy, the workers' vehicle strategy is really going to help them long term. I just don't think that upcharging as much as they are, I don't think that not offering a car, it's just not going to help anybody. And there's a lot of work to be done. And that's the end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.